Hey, good morning. This is Amy Kochek with Amy Kochek Creative, and happy Monday, first of all. I hope that you all have already had a really great start to your Monday, to your week. We are back with another episode of Extraordinary Stories with Extraordinary People. For those of you, if this is your first time watching, twice a week we get on here and we highlight the stories of extraordinary people. Part of my business is ghostwriting, and I teach workshops, and we do a lot with story creation and using your story to help you have breakthroughs and to discover aspects of yourself you didn't know exist, because I believe that the most powerful thing that you possess in your life right now is your story. So because of that, I have decided to go on a search to find people who are doing extraordinary things in this world just by living out their story. So many times I hear people minimize their story or dismiss or say, nobody's going to listen. But really, we do. That's what connects us. That's what makes us alive, worth living. So I'm using this platform to highlight some people that I've met that I think are just doing really great things. And I am so excited about today's guest. I really think this is going to be one of my favorites. No pressure, Lewis. So today I have Lewis Kim on. So I've been following Lewis on Instagram. He's very active on Instagram and just highlighting this amazing journey that he's going on and the things that he's learning along the way. And I just had to get him on here to share what's been going on with his life and his journey. So, Lewis, I want you to first start by telling us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself, tell us who you are.
Yeah, so I just turned 40 this year. I live outside Washington, D.C. in Arlington, not that far from the Pentagon. I've lived here most of my life, and I've spent most of my life involved in small business. And the other thing, which I've struggled with or dealt with most of my life, is my weight. And that's kind of how I find myself talking to you today. But, for the most part, I'm pretty active and like to be outdoors. And clearly, I like to push myself. So that's
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. So let's talk about, as with all of my interviews, the main thing that we focus on is just this one pivotal moment in your life where your life was going in one direction and something happened that shifted your life, that changed the trajectory of your life. So I want you to set us up. What's going on with your life? Who are you? What's happening? And then take us to that pivotal moment where a big change occurred.
So the pivotal moments, there really were two, especially when it comes to my body and my weight. The first one, I was 443 pounds, and I was involved in a business. The business was doing well. I was working, 7 days a week, and I wasn't really taking care of myself. And over the course of, I would say, probably a year plus, I'd ballooned up to over 400 pounds, 443 to be exact, and I didn't even realize how much weight I had gained. And I kept having this thirst, like this insatiable thirst. And I found myself going to buy sodas and like fruity sodas. And what I didn't realize is that I'd become diabetic. And I took myself to a doctor, and I was sitting there in this doctor's office, and this doctor was just very, very cold about everything and was talking about my weight. I'm sitting there, and she's telling me all the issues from my blood work, and I'm diabetic, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, like all the issues that come with being obese. And she just looked at me very blankly and was like, "If you keep going down this path, you're gonna die." And I remember actually starting to cry, and then I just left that doctor's office, and then I got really pissed. And then I got really, really pissed. And that started me on the road of really pushing to lose weight. I did a ton of cardio. From that stretch, I got down to about 220 pounds in a little over a year. And this hadn't been the first time I'd lost extreme amounts of weight through my life. This sort of stretch today is probably the third time. And so that second pivotal moment sort of happened as, from 220 pounds, I started to gain weight. And then, like most people who lose extreme amounts of weight, I regained it, and I was over 300, almost approaching that 400 mark again last year. And I went to Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within in New Jersey. And the thing that happened there is for the first time, I'd actually thought about, or I'd worked on what was going on with my head as opposed to like what was going on with my body. And what I discovered at the event is that I had this limiting belief, and I'd had this belief ever since I was a kid that I was just always going to be overweight, because I was an overweight kid. And from that event, I walked away with just this empowering belief that, look, I own my body and I control what I'm going to do with it. And that sort of has set me on the path that I'm on now, going there. So I would say the first time it was really just the physical being pissed and just going and grinding it out, but not dealing and not working with the emotional and the stuff in your head caused it to sort of happen again. And this time around, that's why my approach is very different than it was in the past.
Yeah. Talk about being pissed. Why were you pissed? I mean, when you're at the doctor and the doctor's saying if you go,
I was pissed that one, I was pissed at the doctor because there was a complete lack of compassion from her end. Like I was really, really pissed. And then, so part of it was like, well, screw you. I'm going to prove you that I don't need what you're going to try and tell me to do. But then I was also pissed that I'd allowed myself to sort of gain that weight. And when you see somebody who's like really obese, right? And I think in 2019, it's way more common than it was in like, 97 when I was in high school, where it's just, when you look at somebody, you don't understand how someone gets that way, but you also don't understand how someone becomes a raging alcoholic, right? Like it doesn't happen overnight. It's little by little by little. And I was really, really pissed at myself for allowing that to happen.
Yeah. When you talked about getting to the point of understanding that it's not just a physical thing, it's a mindset thing, and that you believe that this was something that you were going to have to deal with for the rest of your life. Like you were just going to be overweight for the rest of your life. How do you start tackling that? Like, how do you start? Because this is a lifetime of mentality. How do you start tackling that?
Well, I mean, I'm pretty hard-headed, and I'm pretty, I mean, if you're following me on Instagram, you see like I'm pretty determined. That also works negatively, right? So like if you're down a certain path, like I've sort of lived in extremes, and I think it's when you have those experiences, you get to a point where you have to take a step back and something's not working, and you have to really reflect on what caused that. And so when I was down to the low 200s, I mean, I was doing CrossFit like 5-6 days a week. I was running 10Ks and really, really fit. But then I still found myself gaining weight again. And then when you get to that point, you have to look at yourself and say, what has allowed me to do this? What within me is causing me to come back and balloon back up and be this weight that I never wanted to be again? And what I really realized is I had to start with like within of thinking about and really believing that I'm in full control of what I'm doing, but then internalizing that. And a big part of that has been through meditation. And meditation's been a big part, and just spending more time putting a why behind what I'm doing, as opposed to just going. And that's what I did before, is I would just grind it out, keep moving, work really hard and move forward without really thinking about it, which gets you results. But if you don't deal with the underlying core problem, it doesn't fix the issue.
Yeah. So let's make this practical. So when you're talking about like meditation, how are you specifically using that to overcome these thoughts that have, let's say, taken you down the wrong path?
Yes. So when I'm meditating, one of the things that I'm doing is I'm really visualizing, and I'm using almost I'm sort of a student of Dr. Joe Dispenza. And so I've read a lot of his books and I do a lot of his meditations, and a lot of his meditations are about the energy that you feel around yourself and sort of visualizing what the future looks for you, and then creating that the positive feelings about it. And so when I'm doing that, I'm really visualizing my physical self, my emotional self, and mental self, and then creating that neurological connection where I'm creating that happiness and joy that sort of relates with that. At the same time, it's also, I still have those negative thoughts about being overweight. And there are times that I have to use like an affirmation that says that, look, I'm in control and I move forward. And I think the other practical thing that I do is I just go to the gym on a regular basis, but I'm very sort of intentional about the work that I'm doing in the gym.
Yeah. When you talk about your why, has your why been consistent from the beginning, or does your why kind of organically change as you change?
I would say it's organically changing because now at 40, it's about the ability to be consistent forever, right? Like
Mhm.
I really do not ever want to be in that realm of feeling uncomfortable in my body, right? And everything I'm looking at today, I'm looking at what's sustainable. I mean, for the first time in my life, I'm doing things like stretching, yoga. I mean, the meditation, like all of these things are together, which allow me to continue to push myself in the gym on a regular basis. And so
Mhm.
the deep core why is about being sustainable and about having the physical ability. Really, I mean, at some point, I would like to have a family and have children, and I want to pass those sort of healthy values onto them as well.
Yeah. So the second time that you found yourself creeping back up to the weight that you
Yeah.
previously were, what was the first time is the doctor telling you you're going to die. What's the second time that says this is it and this is the last time I'm going to do this, or the last time I have this moment?
It was leading up to UPW. I was really frustrated. I mean, I was smoking, and someone in my entire life, like I was not a fan of smoking. I don't like the smell of it. And then I was vaping. I was just really unhealthy, and I sort of hit a wall. I think the UPW was more of an event that allowed me to take time for myself, identify that problem, and then just sort of hit it head on. I don't think there was a specific moment like the first time at the doctor's office. I think this was more of a compounding series of events of things that happen where you're just like, look, I'm tired of this, you know?
Mhm.
And to be honest, before I went to UPW, I was in that point where I was really starting to doubt myself because this would be the third or fourth time that I'm going to lose an extreme amount of weight.
Yeah. So in this leg of your journey, what specifically are you using that's brought your weight down? Because how much have you lost since UPW to now?
60 pounds. So it's, you know, and so even that by itself, like going about a 10 pound per month roughly
Yeah.
is, is a pace that is much slower than anything that I've done in the past.
Yeah.
And it's very sort of intentional. You know, I do weigh myself every single day, but I don't freak out about it if I'm fluctuating 4 or 5 pounds, whereas in the past I would lose my mind because I'm looking at the longer term sort of vector and direction and saying, this is where I'm going and this is where I need to be. And this is the way I want to maintain the rest of my life. So that's the way I'm kind of looking at it. You
Yeah.
know, I get messages from like teenagers that are following me and that are overweight and are struggling with it. And the advice that I give them is the advice that I wish I had listened to, which is you're really young. Look at this as the rest of your life. And most of them are like 30, 40 pounds that they want to lose. And I think too often we live in this culture where we want everything now. And so everyone wants to lose it overnight. Right. And the truth is if you did lose it overnight, you're not going to develop the habits or have um, just the way of life, right? Or the lifestyle that's going to allow you to be sustainable for the rest of your life.
Yeah. So what does a typical day look like for you right now in your journey towards weight loss?
So right now, I'm right in the middle of this challenge, which forces me to be doing the 75 hard, which I'm working out twice a day. So I'm up 5 o'clock in the morning. I'll go work out. I'll get one workout in, then I come back, sort of go through my morning routine with meditation and everything, and start work probably somewhere between 8 and 9. And then my afternoon workout will come in somewhere around, depending on the day, either right after lunch around 2 or in the early evening. And then I'll meditate again in the evening before I go to bed. I mean, the big thing is, and the harder part of all of this is obviously the eating. You know, the workouts are actually the easy part. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's maintaining that diet consistently that's been tough. And
Yeah.
so I've been on the keto diet for 6, 7 months now.
Yeah. How have you conquered that? Or not? I mean, I guess there's no conquering it. How do you manage that? The eating.
The funny thing is the keto diet's like they call it an elimination diet, right? Because you're
Yeah.
eliminating all of these things from your consumption. It's actually that type of diet is easier for me
Okay.
because it allows me just to say these are the rules. You can eat these, but don't eat that. And then it also says, look, the big thing is your carbohydrate intake. when I'm doing right now, I've sort of upped that. But before I started this challenge, I was probably trying to keep my carb intake to under 50 grams a day, which is, if you actually start calculating, it's a really tiny amount. I've adjusted that a little bit, so I'm more in like the 65 to 100 depending on the day. But it makes it really easy because you're not, it's not like you can eat dairy, you can't. It's all about your carb intake.
Yeah. So what do you do on days when you have that thought of, I don't want to do this? Like, I don't feel like working out. I just would rather have some cake and ice cream. Like, what's your method?
The workout part of it's easy because you just, I will play mental games with myself where if it, depending on the day, some days what I have to do is I have to mentally beat myself up and make me feel some guilt about losing the momentum.
Yeah.
But then there are other days where I'm just feel like I'm sore, I'm just exhausted. And what I do is I will just say, I'm going to go do this for 5 minutes. Right. And then when I start with that, you do the 5 minutes and you say, okay, I'm going to do 10 minutes. And then I just keep pushing myself to the point where then now I've gotten to an hour of doing whatever that activity is. And that's probably the best tool that I have when I don't feel like doing something, because it's really easy to tell myself, I'm just going to go do this for 2 minutes. And 5 minutes seems to be the magic number right now. Cause there are even days where like, I will say, I just need to go do 20 minutes and I don't want to do that. Right. Yeah. But that 5 minute number just seems to be just enough that you start to get moving. And the truth is, like, the only thing you're trying to break is the inertia. Right. Mm-hmm. So
what do you do with food? Like, if you have specific food cravings, how do you overcome that?
The food cravings, they sort of come and go, but I think I'm at a point now where I don't have like serious cravings, especially on the keto diet. Like when you eliminate that sweet flavor profile because of the carbs in it, I don't get a ton of like diehard cravings. Are there times that like if someone's eating something that looks really good that I want to try it? There are. I will take a bite, right, to taste it, because again, this diet is not about, it's about lowering the number of carbohydrates you're taking. So if I take a bite of something and already know that I've had a strict day, I can live with that.
Yeah. So what do you feel like you've learned about yourself during this leg of your journey as opposed to the other times that you've lost weight?
I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that there was a very long time that I was trying to somehow run away from myself and not identify whatever this underlying issue of feeling like I was always going to be the fat kid. And I've learned, that really that's an identity that I'd accepted that was put onto me by other people through the world, and that I had to sort of create that for myself. And I think where I am today is I'm very aware of who I am. And then I've also just taken that approach, because I've taken that approach of the long-term sustainability of things. It's made it a lot easier just to look at the overall arc, because it's not about just losing a big chunk of weight.
Yeah. So who do you see on the other side of this? So if on the other side of this, you're not the fat kid or you're not the fat guy, who do you see on the other side of this?
Wow. So I don't know. Who I see is, on a physical side, I see somebody who is maintaining a healthy weight that's under 200 pounds. I am definitely happier as a person because I'm more comfortable with who I am. Yeah. I think generally the thing that I'd like to be is like more of who I've always been, which is, someone who's compassionate and empathetic towards other people and is trying to push himself to do bigger things. I think that the biggest thing is being in a little bit leaner body and being able to not being limited, right, and not having limitations, and feeling like someone who is going to choose and do what I want without being limited by what other people think.
Yeah. I know we kind of talked about this before, but since this is a identity that you've spent the majority of your life creating, how do you consistently acquaint yourself with the new person that you want to be? Like, I know we talked about meditation. Is there anything that you're doing on a regular basis that makes it more familiar and like, so you can embrace this person as opposed to this person being a stranger to you?
So I guess it would kind of be, it's something that I guess Tony Robbins talks about it. Dr. Joe talks about it, but when I'm doing those things, I was never very good at patting myself on the back, right? And never really appreciating the small wins. And that's another big thing that I've really started to do. And so when I'm in those moments where I'm being more of the person that I've wanted to be, that I'm being, that I really focus on trying to create those emotional sensations of, gratitude and happiness, of feeling connected to that, so that I'm really helping to rewire the way my brain is. And so I am patting myself on the back when those wins happen, and those are things that I would never do. I mean, even when I'm working out really hard and I do something in the past, I would get it done and it would just be like, oh, great, I'm done. But then I would think about the next thing. And now when I'm doing that, I will, like, I don't care. I'm in the gym. I'll just like whoop really loud, or, or like give a big loud clap and grunt like an ogre. But like, those are all, those are all emotional responses that I would not have given myself before, because I'm trying to make that connection,
Yeah. So have you thought about, because you've been in the grind of losing for so long, and you've gone through the days of what that looks like, do you have a solid idea of what it will look like to just maintain? Like, what does the day look like for maintenance with you? Because you've reached it, you've done it.
Yeah, I'm still a bit away from what my goals are, but my maintenance and what I'm choosing to do is to be very focused on a particular sort of thing or a task. And for me, it's ever since I was a teenager, I liked being in the mountains. And so one of my goals is for next summer is to climb Mount Rainier. And I think through my life, moving forward, the way to achieve that weight is to maintain it, is to have these very set trips of 2, maybe 3 times a year where I have to train for those things. And so that'll keep me in that mindset of always moving forward and looking at and being prepared for the next trip. Because those trips are amazing. Rainier is a little different because it's still in the country, but most of the larger mountains are outside the United States. So being able to travel to other countries and have the cultural experience while going to this destination and accomplishing this thing.
Yeah. How do you feel like what do you feel like is the biggest change that you've made in the years since you've started? Like, what's the big thing that's changed about you?
I think the biggest thing that has changed is just my mindset on this idea of how quick, like, what the perception of speed is in terms of how quickly I get to something. And I'm willing to more appreciate the fact that like really great things take a lot of years of stacking over a long period of time, rather than trying to accomplish, losing 100 pounds in 6 months, right? That's great. Everyone thinks it's awesome, great achievement, but you will do things to lose that 100 pounds in 6 months that are extreme, that are not sustainable in the long term, that won't necessarily benefit you in the long term. So I think it's the acceptance of moving slower but more efficiently and consistently down the same path. That is probably the biggest takeaway and lesson that I'm taking, is just this idea of constant, consistent movement forward, as opposed to wanting to leap every day,
Yeah.
Because those leaps will happen as you stack on top of the day-to-day activities, and you'll have those moments where things jump up. But by being focused on that consistent growth of just, the incremental movements along the way, I think that'll also further keep me in line with maintaining this in the long term.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in community, and like that nothing you achieve that's great can be done alone. That you have to have a team behind you. So especially in this last portion, who would you say, or what group of people would you say has really helped push you through this and encourage you to come to where you are now, and who will continue to do it?
So it's, strangely enough, I never thought I would say this, but like, it's the starting of my Instagram account was just this idea of like, I was going to document this, and the encouragement and the people behind it, like total strangers, right, in different countries, who are, saying that I'm inspirational, or, they're leaving emojis that are like, showing appreciation. It definitely helps because, as you get older in certain points in your life, your social circles, they change, right? And you don't necessarily have all the external pressures or the team. There are a couple of gyms that I'm looking to sort of re-engage where I know people that were from my CrossFit days are attending those, where I can get that. And the other place right now is there's a smaller community of people at the gym that I am going to now, who, they just see me working hard, and we're sort of there to encourage and support each other. So,
yeah, I love that. So, last two questions. So my first question is along the lines of what you said at the beginning, about the doctor and their lack of compassion. I have found in my own journey of weight loss that there is a definite stigma upon people who have weight problems and the way that kind of society responds. So what would your suggestion be for somebody that's in a place where they need to lose weight, or they're struggling with their health? What's a way that the people around them can support them without judgment and lack of compassion? What can we do to change that stigma that seems to be specifically for weight?
Do you mean like how people in someone's life can help support them, or do you mean how do we actually change the stigma that exists against people who are obese? Because
let's do both. I kind of want to hear your opinion on both.
Well, so when it comes to supporting it, that's a tough position to be in because, like you can't ever expect more for somebody than they want for themselves, right? And so when you love somebody, it's very hard sometimes if you want more than they do. And so I think being supportive is that person's got to want it for themselves. And if they do want it for themselves, I think the biggest thing that a person can do to be supportive is to encourage them to, when they do something, is like help them appreciate the small wins. I would say the biggest thing, if you're a spouse or a parent, is like if someone is making choices to eat a certain way, is to not and try and continue to feed them like they're not eating that way, because it's tough enough as it is. But other than that, it's just like, I think continuing to show love and support when that person does do well, and when they're struggling as well.
Yeah.
When it comes to the stigma part of things, like I go sort of back and forth because I'm one of those people that I feel like I've gained the weight based on my own actions or inactions. And so if other people respond a certain way based on my weight or size, like I look at it as that's really on them and not on me. And so I don't know if there really is a need to change that, because I don't think look, I'm not a huge fan of someone, taking somebody down or giving them a hard time because they are overweight. But at the same time, I don't think there's some sort of cultural need to necessarily accept it, because it's really not a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
So
I want you to talk directly to people who are viewing live or those that are viewing on the replay, and talk directly to those people who, it doesn't even have to be weight, just people who are at a space in their life where they're going down a path that they know that they don't want to be going down, and they need to make a change. What would be your advice to them or encouragement that you can give them?
I would tell them, I mean, it's a great question, because there's a blog post that I've been sitting on for months about this. And it's just this concept of inertia, right? And this idea that if you're going in a certain direction, the momentum and the way that you're going, you as the object, you want to continue to go that way as long as everything is equal, right? And so the amount of energy it's going to take to stop and redirect your motion is always going to be harder than you actually think it is. And the biggest thing you have to do is just to take steps. And I hate, it's so cheesy because you hear it from all the gurus in every field about taking action, but that's literally what you have to do, is just take a step. And it's like that game I play with myself when I don't want to go to the gym about 5 minutes. It's just go today. Like if you're feeling crappy or you want to quit smoking, like, you have to break that habit. And so choose not to smoke that cigarette one day, and maybe you're fidgety and you're having a nicotine fit. Replace that with something, like take a step and then you take another step, and then you take another step, and you start letting that compound over a longer period of time. And whatever you're dealing with, you'll wake up and realize you've made significant changes, over that arc. So I would say it's just whatever that thing is, or whatever that change you're wanting to make is just a start. Like, stop thinking about it and literally just start. Is just take a movement, take a step. What is the most incremental, smallest step that I can take to head in that direction and slow the inertia going in this one direction, so that I can redirect it and put my energy towards this other way that I want to go with my life.
Yeah, I love that. So how can people reach you? How can they contact you?
So on Facebook, I've got a Facebook page. It's Salty Asian. On Instagram, it's Salty Asian, but instead of an A, there's an 8, because Instagram's policies on being PC. So so it's at Salty8 SIAN.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll put it in the comments as well, so you can connect with
Cool.
them. And make sure that you connect with them, because his journey is so inspiring, and not even just from a health and weight loss standpoint, but just your perseverance and your focus and determination. It can be applied in so many areas of your life. So make sure that you follow him. Lewis, thank you so much for your wisdom, your experience. Thank you for sharing your vulnerability. We appreciate it. And for those of you, make sure that you connect with him and join us on Friday for yet another episode of Extraordinary Stories with Extraordinary People. Have a wonderful Monday. Thanks.